Hail, Jim Alexander.
The J, the I, the M, the M, the Y, the J, the I, the M is Jimmy. It's Jimmy.
I'm good. I'm hunkered down and good.
How's the hunkering down treating you? Anything interesting you're finding to do? Any new activities? Or
I'm finding what an interesting person I am. I mean, I've never spent this much time with myself. So it's like, I'm sort of being silly, but it's really true. I mean, I got, except for the Riot, my cat, and Lily, my dog, I mean, we have very long conversations. So,
there you go.
Yeah, so I'm doing okay. And bottom line is, I hope we all stay well, and I hope we all learn something. It's time we learn something.
I think so. The more I'm in isolation, the more I'm starting to think how, some things were taken for granted before, and the simple everyday realities that we just kind of bypass. Now you see in a bigger scope, and it really means something. And
Los Angeles right now supposedly has the best air in the nation. And I live in a beautiful area where the skies... And I mean, it's not dirty. I mean, usually my sink, I rub my hand around my sink and it's filthy just because having the window open.
That's right.
And so you got to recognize that oxygen level is also increasing people's sense of joy. I mean, we've really fucked up.
Totally.
Pardon my language.
Totally.
It's really. I'm really hoping that, I think the same, can I use bad words? Is it okay?
Oh, yeah.
I think the same assholes will go back to being assholes, and hopefully good people will learn a little bit better, and maybe it won't go back to normal. It shouldn't go back to normal, because our normal has really suffered.
I agree.
It's not very good.
Especially with, like, when you mentioned, just like even the air pollution, just in general, the nature, we've had all that, global warming. It's been an issue for years now. And this is like, it's showing that, just a little bit, we can make a difference by kind of getting, animals are coming out now and the air is cleaner.
Right. Dolphins?
Yes.
Dolphins were swimming in the Venice canals. And, I mean, it's totally true. I have more birds. You should see my yard is just, like an aviary. I mean, I've got birds I've never seen before. No, it's really, if you can get around, I live on my own. So for me, it's easier to pinpoint all that. I think families is going to be a big, people are, Mom and Dad doesn't spend that much time with their kids.
Yep.
Kids don't spend that much time with each other. Mom and Dad don't spend that much time together. Suddenly there's going to be a huge change in family dynamic, too. It's crazy. So let's hope for the best. And thank God for movies.
That's right. Actually, this whole time, I thought about maybe we should start thinking if it's possible to bring back some of those drive-in movie theaters, too.
That would be really fun. You're right. Yep.
That would be great. We've spoke before. We have a mutual friend with Timothy Woodward, and I've talked to you on Red Carpet. It's one of my I've always mentioned to you, you're one of my favorite interviews to do and people to talk to. I was kind of looking over your career since I have time now and all that. And it's amazing to me how, you actually started out kind of with comedies in a lot of ways. And then you kind of transformed into this, like, queen of horror, as I've dubbed you as. How has that transition happened over? You've been in the industry for a long time and just had an amazing working career. But how did that transformation kind of happen to the point where kind of started with comedy and you had this interesting turn and just like this horror kind of stayed on? And I didn't even know that you had us part in the Nightmare on Elm Street, the original one too, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
Do you kind of look back at that and think about how you kind of ended up at this point right now, where you've been part of so many huge horror franchises and that genre has kind of made you in a lot of ways now be the face of it?
I don't really have an answer for that because I never looked for one thing or another. I just sort of tried to take advantage of opportunity as they showed up, and it was random. Most of it was random. In the beginning, my brother Bob Shaye started the original New Line Cinema in 1968 in his apartment in New York. And I was at Columbia. I was in their theater arts program at Columbia University. I was in the master's program in acting which was really fun and exciting. And I was actually living with Bob and his girlfriend at the time, and Bob decided to start this company. And acting for me was just storytelling. And I mean, I've been asked this question a lot. I somehow, from the very beginning, I enjoyed telling stories, and my mom and dad were good storytellers, and you know, whatever makes you unique in your own way. I mean, I used to make up. I had not a lot of children in my neighborhood when I was little, so I would make up stories with my dolls and my stuffed animals, and I would take all my clothes out of my closet and pretend I was different people. I don't know what. It was my way of entertaining myself and sort of peopling my world with not just by myself. And so you sort of automatically start enjoying storytelling. And from there, you know, school plays, blah, blah, blah. Never loved one thing more than another. You know, I just loved being able to tell a story. And I would say Bob, my brother, when I had a lot of little... And I was very excited to be out in California. I mean, it's a whole long story. I lived in New York and did theater for 10 years before I came out to L.A. I had no intention of doing film, ever. I loved theater. I flew out here to meet Jack Nicholson for one line in Going South, which is a whole long story unto itself again, and ended up in California. And so when Bob, but when I was in New York, California was after New York. When I was in New York, Bob would say to, like, Wes Craven, put my sister in your movie. So he really opened the door to a lot of what it happened to be horror films. Critters was one, but Nightmare on Elm Street was a big deal because that was like the launching pad for Wes Craven. And I'm kind of running all over the place here with different themes, but I think the bottom line is, and the real answer is, I took what came in front of me, and I was always a yes person. So before it was even out of their mouth, would you like to? Yes. One line, fine. What time do I have to be there? And I didn't even know if it was comedy, drama, or horror. You know, so. And I love it all, you know. So I never steer myself into just a genre. I steer myself into the best story that is available and that I can tell truthfully. That's kind of even leads me to the next question. In terms of Dreamcatcher, what led you to it? Now, what do you look for now in a script, in a sense, in a story, to take a role? Like for example, this film. What are some, like, maybe, I don't know if you have, like, any bullet points kind of immediately that you kind of look at, or things that immediately appeal to you when you have a script presented to you or whatnot in a role? Well, this sort of came... Carrie Harris, who directed the film, has been a friend of mine for quite a long time, and he showed me the script at one point, and I didn't really care for it too much, to be honest. And between the two of us and the writer, who doesn't live here, we kind of there were a lot of unanswered questions that I had about the story and making the story clear about what was the Dreamcatcher and what was the mythology. You know, we're creating a pretend world, you know, for this creature, or, you know, this web. And it was kind of a discussion whether it was a web that she got caught in, or that she was using as her home. And I wanted to make it that it was her home, and she used it to catch the children, you know, so that she was the evil spirit, basically. And made her very real to myself. So that was very appealing to me, that Carrie was open to my ideas and the writer was open to our ideas, and we were able to make changes, and I got very involved in the script and in creating Ruth. And that was so lately that's been very appealing to me, to really be a participant in the actual story and script and dialogue. I'm really good at dialogue, I've discovered. And I know when something doesn't ring true and when it doesn't work, and to go to talk about television for a minute, which is I haven't done a whole lot of television. I'm in the new Penny Dreadful, which is airing on Showtime at the end of April, which is going to be extraordinary, and with Nathan Lane, and it's a magnificent series.
Yes.
But it's television, and it's John Logan, who is the showrunner, is brilliant. Has written the most really exquisite writing and episodes I've ever been a part of. But it was word for word. You are not allowed. He even said to us, when I wrote gotta, I don't mean got to. When I write got to, I don't mean gotta. It's word for word. And that was a real challenge for me because I go, wait a minute, I know how to say it, So, and I had to be a good girl and do what was required. But what was going back to what was appealing to me is I love being able to be a part of that process when I can be. So, as much as it's important to be well directed and be quiet when you're, when it's not your turn to talk. I like being able to interrupt people and give them my thoughts. So if that makes any sense, it's different machinery. Television and film are different machines, and so I love that Carrie was so open. I love that the writer was so open, Dan, and that we were able to hammer out, I think, a good story. That was a long way to tell you the answer to your question.
That works. It works for me. Wanted to finally kind of end off. I have thousands of questions for you, but I was always curious what sort of movies and franchises, especially in horror, influenced you or were always a fan of that draw you in. Were you like a Friday the 13th person, or was there a specific character that really drew in? Because being part of the Insidious, now Nightmare on Elm Street, also going back to that, you've been part of some iconic franchises. Any special characters or either franchise that's really kind of inspired you, that you always enjoyed, that maybe kind of enhances your work that you look back on?
I don't really think so. This is going to sound weird. I'm not that literate. Unfortunately, I'm not a very good reader. I love reading scripts because they're easy to read, but I'm not like a real book person. I wish I was. I think it goes back to when I learned to read. It was sucky. It's not like today where these kids are reading when they're 3 years old. It was. So my skill at that. So I'm not as versed in material as I should be, in which a lot of people who are history and storylines and characters that have a history, that have a franchise almost to them. Movies I've always enjoyed, but I've never been. I was just thinking, my favorite horror film is Night of the Hunter.
Oh, interesting.
Which is. And that and The Shining, but lately it's been, and I just found out Universal's doing a remake of it, and I want to play Lillian Gish's role.
Yes,
that's my latest crush, in terms of. But I don't really. There has not been a franchise, or I haven't been that influenced by filmmaking. I feel I'm a very interior person, and basically, for better and for worse, what I bring to a role is my insides. It's not my out. It's not trying to be like anything I've seen. I don't even think about that. I really try and find the guts of the character I'm trying to find. And Timothy Woodward, speaking of which, has been extraordinary in terms of supporting that in me. And we have a new movie coming out. I don't know if you know that. It's called The Call, and it's unbelievably beautiful.
Looking forward to it.
Exciting.
Yeah.
And it's a real horror film. It's going to be it's gruely. Gruely, not even gruesome. It's gruely. It's really scary. So, and I admire these actresses, like Jamie Lee Curtis and all these wonderful actresses who really are horror. They really are scream queens to me. To me, I feel like I'm just an actress who knows how to scream if I need to.
Lynn, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I hope once this all settles down, I get to see you again at a premiere, a red carpet. Always enjoy talking to you. And please enjoy your time and stay safe right now and have fun with all the birds and the air, because that might disappear soon after this settles down.
Oh, I hope not. I hope we hang on I hope we've learned something.
I hope so, too.
I don't know. We're pretty stupid, though, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
to old habits. Old habits die hard. Well, you've been a wonderful interview, and thank you for bearing with my rambling.
Oh,
absolutely.
Please. Always fun speaking to you. Looking forward to talking to you again.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, Lynn.
Until next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Until next time.